Good morning and welcome to the South Carolina Public Service Commission. It is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025, approximately 10 a.m. We're here today for an ex parte communication briefing filed by the Palmetto Broadband Coalition. First, it appears that all commissioners are present here in the hearing room. Ms. Wessinger Hill, if you would, please read the docket and explain today's proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all the commissioners as well as all of those who are present in the hearing room this morning. Today is Tuesday, July the 9th, 2025. We are here, as the Commissioner Chairman actually referenced, pursuant to a notice of request for an allowable ex parte briefing from the Palmetto Broadband Coalition. The subject matter to be discussed at this briefing today is to, quote, introduce Palmetto Broadband Coalition and provide overview of broadband investment. This is the same subject matter to be discussed as was noticed on May 6, 2025 by the clerk's office for this briefing. As I mentioned, this is a briefing, not a hearing. The briefing must be conducted in compliance with the provisions of South Carolina Code Section 58-3-260C. The requirements of the statute are, in part, that the allowable ex parte be confined to the subject matter which has been noticed. Therefore, I ask that the presenters, commissioners, and staff all please refrain from discussing any matters not related to this specific topic. Second, the statute prohibits any presenter, commissioner, or commissioner staff from requesting or giving any commitment, predetermination, or prediction regarding any action by any commissioner as to any issue which either is or is likely to come before the commission. Third, I would ask that the presenters, commissioners, and staff also refrain from referencing any report, article, statute, or documents of any kind that are not included in today's presentation. A copy of any document which is referenced during the briefing must be provided to the Office of Regulatory Staff as the neutral for inclusion in the record, as well as to our court reporter. The record will be certified by the Chief Clerk of the Commission, Ms. Jocelyn Boyd. Fourth, if anyone during the course of this briefing, 1, exceeds the scope of the notice subject matter or topic, 2, does not comply with or fails to conduct themselves within the provisions of South Carolina Code Section 58-3-260, it is expected that a contemporaneous objection be made. This means you must make an objection at the time of the misconduct or overstep when it happens. You can't wait until after the fact or at the end of the briefing. And finally, everyone in attendance today in person must sign in or register. Everyone in the hearing room must also read, sign, and return the form which was handed to you by staff when you entered the doorway. You must return this before leaving the hearing room. Staff will be at the exit to collect these forms. It is required by law for each attendee in person to certify that requirements contained in Section 58-3-260C have been complied with at this presentation. I thank you for your time and attention, and Mr. Chairman, the request and notice of this allowable ex parte briefing are in order.
Very good. Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to presenters, I'd like to say I'm particularly interested in this topic. Vice Chair Williams and I both have served on national panels about broadband, and there, of course, as you all know, a great need in our rural areas, which a lot of my congressional district is, rural areas for this access. Now, I would ask, I don't know how if anybody's coordinating this, but if you would, please introduce yourselves for the record, and you may proceed as any manner you desire. The other thing is we do have ORS here as a neutral. If you would, please, ORS, first introduce yourselves, and then we'll proceed.
Good morning, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. Claire Binge with the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you very much.
I'm Ben Mustian on behalf of ORS as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mustian. All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Powers. Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Powers. Good morning, Vice Chairman Williams and members of the Commission. My name is Brad Wright. I'm with Bird Foreman Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of the Palmetto Broadband Coalition. I'm accompanied by my co-counsel, Nanette Edwards, also with Bird Foreman, also here on behalf of the Palmetto Broadband Coalition. We obviously have some additional representatives here from the member companies of the Palmetto Broadband Coalition. Before I introduce them, I'd like to just address a couple of things. One, thank y'all for the opportunity to be here today. Palmetto Broadband Coalition has a good story to tell about progress that has been made with respect to extending broadband across the state and particularly into rural areas. And I think you will enjoy what they have to say today. The second thing is the Palmetto Broadband Coalition is a relatively new entity as far as these companies coming together to talk about and discuss policy and efforts to extend broadband or access to broadband across the state of South Carolina, but also to really make an impression on the public for how necessary broadband is. And so with that, let me also remind the commission that though the Palmetto Broadband Coalition is new, these companies aren't, and they have a long and rich history in South Carolina that even this commission is familiar with. So all of these companies are members of the South Carolina Telephone Coalition, which has made appearances before the General Assembly as well as before this commission for many, many years. So with that, I would like to introduce the members of the Palmetto Broadband Coalition, or the representatives we have today. First, we have Mr. Will Helmley. Mr. Helmley is the chairman of the Palmetto Broadband Coalition and also the CEO of Home Telecom. Next, we have one straggler. He is on the way. I assure you he will be here. But Jay Brown is the vice chairman of Palmetto Broadband Coalition and the CEO of Farmers Telephone Cooperative. Next, we have David Barnes. Mr. Barnes is the CEO of Comporium. Next, we have Lee Chambers. Mr. Chambers is the CEO of Sandhill Telephone Cooperative. Next, we have Jason Dandridge. Mr. Dandridge is the CEO of Palmetto Rural Telephone Cooperative. And next, we have Carlton Lewis. Mr. Lewis is the CEO of Ori Telephone Cooperative. Next, we have Eric Ramey. Mr. Ramey is the Senior Vice President with True Vista Communications. And finally, we have Chris Townsend. Mr. Townsend is the CEO of West Carolina Rural Telephone Cooperative. So, if I may, we've been through the member companies. I want you to pay particular attention, if you will, to the map. We just went through the list of different companies, and you can see the color codes up there on the map that sort of indicate where these companies, where their service areas are. So if you look at in the eastern portion there, that dark green color around Berkeley County, that area, that is Home Telecom's service area. If you look at the light blue color in the middle there around Williamsburg, Sumter, Lee, Florence, Clarendon County, that is the service area for Farmers Telephone Cooperative. If you look in the dark red, or the, well, lighter red colors for Comporium, up around the north portion of South Carolina, Rock Hill, York County, extending a little over into Chesney, as well as the central portion of South Carolina, sort of to the west of Columbia. That is all Comporium's service area. Next, we have Sandhill Telephone Cooperative. That's that purple area. Again, the northern portion of the state. Next, we have Palmetto Rural Telephone Cooperative. That's that burgundy color, sort of the southeast corner of the map down there is their service area. Next, we have Ori Telephone Cooperative. That's where you would expect, up around Ori County. That dark blue area extends into Georgetown and Marion County as well, but that's their service area. And then next, we have True Vista Communications. That's that yellow color, sort of in the middle of the state, is their service area. And then finally, we have this dark blue color, which is West Carolina's territory in that upstate portion of the state. That is their service area. If the commission will indulge me for a minute, we have some other representatives of the companies here today who are not here to present, but we appreciate them attending as well. And a lot of these efforts in rural areas are due to their efforts as well to extend broadband. So just going through the crowd a little bit, if y'all will wave, Sarah Benoit right here in the front row with Ori Telephone Cooperative. Behind her, we have Von Todd, also with Ori Telephone Cooperative. Stephen Taylor with West Carolina Rural Telephone Cooperative. In the back there, Dwayne Wilson with Palmetto Rural Telephone Cooperative. Extending over here, we have Robert Meeker. Mr. Meeker is with Home Telecom. We have Ben Spearman, the Secretary-Treasurer of Palmetto Broadband Coalition. And we have Nola Armstrong here in the front row, the Executive Director of Palmetto Telephone Coalition. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my law partners in the back there, Peg Fox, as well as John Bowen, all of Byrd Foreman Law Firm. So with that, let me just say, again, I think you will enjoy the story that Palmetto Broadband Coalition has to tell. These are local companies headquartered in South Carolina. They employ people right here in the state, and they have invested billions of dollars in resources and assets, particularly in the rural areas of our state. And they are focused on providing premier services to their customers. So the plan for today, generally, I've given you hopefully a satisfactory introduction. I'm going to hand this off to Ms. Edwards for a PowerPoint presentation about the history of some of these companies, the progress South Carolina has made as a whole with respect to extending broadband across the state, access to broadband across the state, particularly in rural areas. And she'll also talk about the importance of having a connected network, how important that is to all of our citizens and residents in South Carolina. So after that, you'll have an opportunity to hear briefly from the different representatives on the panel up here today with each of the member companies. And with that, Mr. Brown has joined us, Farmers Telephone Cooperative. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards, welcome back. We've missed you.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back. It's always wonderful to be in front of the Public Service Commission, and thank you again for allowing us to do this presentation. It really means a lot to our member companies, and for some of them, this is their first time visiting the commission. So do speak loudly into the microphone and pull it closely. I have learned that many times from Miss Jo Wheat, because I'm unfortunately sometimes not good about speaking directly into the microphone.
You know, I'd not interrupt you, but it seems to me they can say, "Can you hear me now?"
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, formally, the South Carolina Telephone Coalition, that's how you've known us for many, many years. SCTC, you've seen us in dockets before you. We've been serving rural South Carolina since 1894. Some of our members are 130 years old. Headquartered in South Carolina, all of our members are headquartered here in the state. They employ over 3,000 employees in our state. They have more than 450,000 broadband customers stretching across all 46 counties. Our members actually touch each and every one of the 46 counties. We span 63.1% of the land square miles of the state. We reach 32.3% of the more than 2.1 million broadband serviceable locations in the state. Now, you know telecom and you know communications. We love our acronyms. So broadband serviceable locations, I'm going to use the acronym BSL because I'm going to say it so much. A broadband serviceable location is given to us by the Federal Communications Commission, and it basically means that there's a location in our state that is capable of receiving high-speed internet service. And with more than 2.1, we reach roughly 32.3%. Now, I'm going to go back to that slide of the coverage map because I think a picture makes it easier to understand. If we're spanning all 46 counties, roughly 63.1% of those land square miles, but we're able to access 32% of those 2.1 BSLs, that means that we're in the rural areas of the state. You get outside the city centers, it becomes a rural area very quickly, and there's not as many people to serve. So we got to stretch that infrastructure over more land miles to serve fewer customers. And that's our history. That is our history of our members, serving our customers and our cooperative members and going where others would not go. Others would not have made that investment. That it's our DNA, if you will, to go where it was necessary, where customers were calling for that back then, innovative telephone service. So taking us back in time, in the year 1904, Mr. and Mrs. Winters, they started in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, with no office and 6 phones. That company today is Home Telecom. So from very humble beginnings and really a desire to just serve your neighbors, your family, your community, that's how each one of our member companies and our cooperatives really began. Just bringing service, what was desperately needed at that time, as telephone service. Our cooperatives really came about as part of the Rural Electrification Administration rolling out electric service. Well, very quickly it was realized we need to install telecommunications phone service as well. So you see our formation dates here. You see the companies late 1890s, early 1900s, and you see the cooperatives around the 1950s. Again, I'm going to throw some more acronyms at you because, again, we love them. Incumbent local exchange carriers. All of our members are ILECs. They have an incumbent local service territory. And that's where they began. They began providing service in these rural communities. They are carriers of last resort, COLR. And that is the responsibility, the obligation to provide service upon reasonable request by a residential or single-line business customer for voice service. They are called upon, and that is the obligation that they have undertaken in our state. But what has happened? We've had a changing and very challenging regulatory and technology landscape over the past somewhat 100 years. Our members have had to evolve. They've had to add other services, cable, now internet, many things besides just voice services. They've been asked to expand outside of their service areas, and they have heeded that call. Neighboring communities have asked and continue to do so today. Our members will probably talk about that as part of their member presentations, how they've been called upon to extend service outside of those initial incumbent local exchange areas. So I talked a moment about changing technology. You know, some might say that the birth date of the internet is January 1, 1983. Well, our members began deploying fiber in their core networks as early as the early 1980s. They began making those investments of fiber to the premise in the early 2000s. And that's important to understand because today there are many different forms of technology to provide internet service, but the best is fiber. Hands down, fiber is the best technology to provide high-speed internet service. It is scalable. You can put electronics at either end, and you can scale that level of service. And we did bring a demonstrable exhibit, and I'm going to hold it up for the cameras, and we'll pass it around. But you have a single strand of fiber. This is 144 strands, but one cable, and you can see this, the technology that has evolved over the last many decades. It is somewhat amazing how much more we can do. And with that, I will pass this around at the end of my conclusion of my presentation so that you can kind of get a sense of how that thin filament, what we can do with the technology we have today. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next, a little bit more about broadband in particular. So broadband yesterday and today, really the pivotal point in our state in the story of broadband is COVID. The pandemic really highlighted the need for greater access. That means more South Carolinians actually having access to broadband, but also speed. So in 2020, the ORS report, and it's cited on the slide, 86% of South Carolina residents had access at speeds that were 25 megabits per second down and 3 megabits per second up. And that was the then definition by FCC for served. If you had that level of speed, you were considered served. If you did not, you were maybe underserved or unserved if you had no access at all. Fast forward to 2025, these statistics are amazing. We go to 98.9% of South Carolina residents have access at speeds that are 100/20 megabits per second. So not only did we increase the number in terms of individuals or locations with access, but we also had a new FCC definition for served. We learned during the pandemic that a family of 4, 2 working parents and 2 children, 25/3 was not enough. You had parents trying to remote work. You had students trying to do remote learning. It was definitely a moment in time from teachers to parents tearing their hair out, trying to adapt to that, not having children go into a school setting. And you may recall during this time frame stories of children in cars trying to do their homework at a location because they don't have access at home. Our members worked with the Office of Regulatory Staff during that time period. They waived late fees. They suspended disconnection. They made discounted internet service available at discounted prices. They participated in the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program and the Affordable Connectivity Program. And they also established free public Wi-Fi locations so that their communities, their customers could get access during that most critical time. We know broadband is a necessity. It really is now permeating so much of our everyday lives. We've talked about education, work, and telehealth, but let's talk about smart homes, smart thermostats, smart appliances. We are really adapting into our everyday life. If you've got Alexa or Siri, we are just really, personally, I like the smart coffee maker. That's my favorite. But security and video surveillance as well. And if you've got children or a grandchild that's into gaming, that high-speed internet, they're looking for 1 gig and better. So it's definitely evolved. Our lifestyles are evolving. Well, I showed you earlier that 2020 to 2025 statistic, 86 to 98.9, that we have accomplished as a state, and with our members working hard as well, we have really moved the ball in a very short period of time. Broadband Accessibility Act, our leadership saw what was going on, leaned in, and passed the Broadband Accessibility Act in October of 2020. And the purpose of that policy was to extend broadband to unserved areas of the state. But that wasn't it. Our leadership really put a focus on collaborative processes, gathering the different state agencies that have a role in issuing permits for that infrastructure to get deployed. So DOT established a fast track process, DHEC, Corps of Engineers, just to name a few others. And of course, there's railroads. So getting that infrastructure out there in a rapid deployment manner was really a key objective. The Broadband Office was formed by budget proviso in June of 2021. And again, their main purpose was mapping and to administer grants, both state and federal, and to establish a process for rapid deployment of broadband infrastructure. That was the directive. And this is unique, so I have to mention it. Our South Carolina Broadband Office has a dashboard, and as construction projects are completed, there is they have to, as part of the grant, they have to do a speed test. And that speed test goes up into the cloud, and that speed test information then informs their dashboard, and they literally see the state of South Carolina lighting up as those construction projects are completed. The mapping is critically important because at this time, especially in 2020, 2021, we're talking about grant dollars. Those dollars were scarce. So you needed to know where to make that investment. Mapping was a critical component during that early period and still is today. Our leadership made the funds available. This starting with the first $50 million in 2020, leadership over a period of time has made almost $500 million available in public grant funding. Some is state dollars, some are federal dollars, but the total state administered grant programs is roughly $490 million. It's not all just grants. It's actually a competitive grant programs where there is a private match component. Sometimes it's 50-50. Sometimes it can be more or 60-40, 60% private, 40% grant. It just depends on that particular grant round and the level of competition and the ability of these many companies, not just ours, but many companies competitively bidding to roll out that rural broadband infrastructure. Now, this is an incredible statistic, incredible moment actually in time for the state of South Carolina. South Carolina, as we stand here today on July 9th, South Carolina has got roughly 22,000 BSLs left out of that 2.1 million. Let me repeat that. 22,000 out of 2.1 is now considered unserved or underserved. We know from the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment, that's the BEAD program, it's a 42-point-some-odd billion dollar program. We know the state has been allocated over $500 million. This state will absolutely close that digital divide. There will be universal connectivity in the state of South Carolina. And that is a unique situation. That's not necessarily a truth for all the other 49 other states. So this is something that South Carolina uniquely is in the position to do. Our members, I've talked about our age. Our members have made consistent investment over a long period of time to the tune of almost $1.7 billion. That's their private capital investment. It does also include the private match that they did in the grant rounds starting in 2020. We can see the fruits of that in terms of that 32.3% of access to the BSLs. That's over 700,000 locations. So they have the capability of reaching over 7,000 locations in our state. You can also see it in terms of our miles of fiber. 40,000 miles plus of fiber, of which 80% is underground. Now, it is less expensive to put fiber on poles, absolutely. But it is more resilient to put fiber in the ground. And fiber in the ground, we are a hurricane-prone state. We have, on occasion, extreme winter weather. But by making that capital expenditure up front for undergrounding of fiber, we are providing a better quality of service to our customers. We have fewer outages. And frankly, in the long run, in the very long run, we have less repairs and maintenance. I talked about fiber as being scalable, future-proof. I want to highlight for you, and I briefly touched on it earlier, but I want to share some statistics that I think are somewhat startling. When we say demand is exponentially increasing, one of our members looked at their maximum peak average before the pandemic in 2019. They were at 31 gigabits per second. Fast forward less than 6 years, 400% increase. They're at maximum peak average is 150 gigabits for their system. In 2023, there's an interesting report, Consumer Affairs report. U.S. households had an average of 21 connected devices over 13 device categories. We're not even in AI yet. South Carolina, and this is another statistic to be proud of, South Carolina is the only state out of all 50 with better rural broadband access than urban. And how do we know this? Well, I've mentioned those speed tests. Well, Ookla is an entity that if you can download the app on your phone and you can do a speed test of your internet service at home. Well, Ookla, in their most recent report, they have identified that South Carolina is the only state where a rural resident's access to broadband outperforms that of an urban resident. And what that really is telling us is that it's the deployment of fiber in the rural areas of our state. That's what that's telling us. I mentioned those free public Wi-Fi locations. When we add up our members today in terms of how many free public Wi-Fi locations are available in their footprint, we're over just over 105. Our members, they don't just advance access, they also advance education. They have partnered with schools and technical colleges to offer classes on internet safety, cybersecurity, digital literacy, among other items. And you're going to hear more about that in their company presentations. I've talked about universal connectivity. We know it's imperative. We've lived it. We've lived without it. We know we got to have it. But I would really be remiss if I did not emphasize that while there has been incredible achievement between 2020 and 2025, we were at 86% in 2020. There have been consistent investments in this state, and that was been made available through the designation of eligible telecommunications carriers. That ETC status, all of which our members employ and others, that enables access to the Federal Universal Service Fund and federal dollars coming into our state for high cost schools and libraries, rural hospitals, but also what you may know as the Lifeline program. The Lifeline program provides a discount to qualifying residential low-income households so that they can have a discount on their internet service or voice. But it's that designation by this commission of ETC status, because this didn't happen overnight. We didn't get down to 22,000 remaining unserved or underserved locations overnight. We really didn't. It took consistent investment. And this commission also established what is known as the South Carolina Universal Service Fund in 2001. This ability to have universal connectivity is very much reliant on a sharing of those costs. And again, I point you back to our map where I showed you at the beginning, 63% of the land square miles are covered with this network. Only 32.3%, roughly 700,000 locations. It's a lot of miles to cover for a smaller population. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Will Helmley. He's the chairman of the Broadband Coalition for the beginning of the company member presentations. And thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Good morning, Ms. Edwards.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
With regard to those 22,000 BSLs, I think I got that right. How does the growth that South Carolina is seeing impact those numbers? I mean, I understand if they're going into areas where there are already lines out, but is that a moving target because of growth in South Carolina?
That is an excellent question. The short answer is there is going to become a point in time, because there has to be, right, in order for you to know what's frozen in time. But there are different versions of that fabric, the map, and we're actually on version 6 now, and that's how you get to the 2.1 million. So to answer your question, there has been the opportunity to add and delete BSLs. We've come across situations where the FCC thinks there's a serviceable location. It's actually a burned out barn, or it used to be a power plant that has been decommissioned. So there have been times where the fabric has had to be corrected, updated, So it's an excellent question, but there has to be a demarcation point for purposes of the expenditure of the program. In the most recent, as we're approaching the process for BEAD, there will come a point in time where it becomes frozen. You can't, after the main application is the proposal is submitted to NTIA, there is going to be a time where you can't really do what I would call updates or editing. And I don't know if that answered your question directly, but
It did. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. All right, and with that, if it's all right, I'm going to go ahead and
Chair Powers.
share. Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Thomas.
Just a quick question. So earlier you mentioned a smart coffee maker. What is a smart coffee maker?
You can time, yeah. You can. I have I do a lot of Alexa, so I actually can have. You can actually set it up so that it comes on at a specific time. And there's smart refrigerators. I have not bought one yet, but I've been eyeing one, as a matter of fact. So I do think your number of connected devices in your home with AI in particular just around the corner, some might say it's even here now, you're going to see a lot more of that demand, that consumer demand for connectivity.
Well, I thought my wife's a very smart coffee maker, but obviously something better than that, huh? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Edwards, I've had a smart refrigerator for years. When I'm lying in bed at night, the ice cream is yelling my name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an interesting, it's fun to see the technology evolve, isn't it? It really is. Well, any more questions? Okay. I'm going to just share, if it's all right, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, I'm going to just share so that you can kind of get a tangible feel. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hemley.
Am I? Okay, I see it now. Thank you. Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. I want to thank you all again for allowing us the opportunity to come today and tell you all a little bit about the Palmetto Broadband Coalition story. As has been said, I'm Will Helmley, President and CEO of Home Telecom, and I have the privilege of being the chair of this group here. As you've already heard, PBC represents an alliance of South Carolina-based broadband providers, each with a rich history of serving telecommunication needs in South Carolina. Throughout the history of our state, the independent companies and cooperatives have stepped up time and time again to connect homes, schools, businesses, first responders, and healthcare providers. Today, with South Carolina's historic investment in resources to ensure that every business is connected, these companies have now become known as the longtime experts and providers of connectivity. I think it's important for y'all to understand the fundamental goals when we formed this organization, and there are three of them. One, we will work tirelessly to expand high-speed broadband access to underserved and unserved areas of South Carolina, ensuring that no community is left behind. Two, we will engage with policymakers at all levels to advocate for policies that encourage investments and innovation in the state's broadband infrastructure. And three, we will support innovative solutions that leverage broadband technology to address local challenges and drive economic growth through partnerships and collaborations. As we look ahead, we need to remember that while we are in the technology business, this is not about technology. This is about lifting up the people of our communities. It's about ensuring that every South Carolinian, from bustling cities to the most rural areas, has a chance to thrive. With that, we want to take an opportunity to let you hear from each of the companies, and I'm going to kick that off a little bit about my company. Now, every one of us could sit up here for hours and tell you stories about the meaningful impact we've had on our communities. So, for the sake of time, we're going to limit that to just a few highlights. But I do want to kick it off. I'm again the CEO of Home Telecom. We're a privately held broadband provider, with roots going back over 120 years. We have over 250 employees, serving approximately 50,000 customers in Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties. By the end of this year, over 95% of those customers will be served by either multi-gigabit capable fiber to the home or hybrid fiber coax networks. But as I mentioned before, this is not about technology. It's about serving the communities. So what I want to do is highlight a few of the strategic partnerships that we've been involved in our communities. You can see the green area that we serve on the map there. In the northern part of that is a community called Cross, South Carolina. It's a community that is very socioeconomically depressed. Most of the households are well below the median income levels. 100% of the 695 students in the Cross elementary to high school feeder network are on free and reduced lunch, or qualify for free and reduced lunch. The academic standards, academic performance of the schools in that area fail just about every category, just about every measure. So we partnered with the Berkeley County School District and Google to try and address that situation. Google provided free laptops to every school, and we provided free and discounted internet to all the households that had a student in those school districts. And the goal there was to ensure that every student, regardless of the zip code, could thrive in a digital classroom, but also access educational opportunities and resources outside of the physical classroom. So they spend a lot more time at home than they do in the classroom. So we tried to open that up for them. The second part of that initiative, not focused on the cross community, but we partnered with recognizing in rural communities that drive time is an issue, right? And it's difficult for people in the most rural communities to get to some of the resources that are available. So the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce stepped up with an initiative to establish resource hubs in multiple communities. And they've established them in Crawls, Alvin, Cane Hoy, Sand Ridge, and Wassamassaw areas, again, very rural areas of Berkeley County. Each of these hubs are equipped with computers, printers, webcams, and Google Chromebooks. And we provide internet, and each of those locations are a free public Wi-Fi access point as well. This enables residents to engage in learning opportunities, apply for jobs, and attend healthcare appointments. Digital literacy programs are offered that are vital for teaching our seniors the value of the internet, and workforce development programs are made available to build resilient future-ready workforce for our community. Again, this was a collaborative effort led by the Berkeley County School District with us. It includes AARP for the senior training, mental health, those screening services there, as well as Trinity Technical Colleges offers courses there. So these are just a few examples of some of the what we call our strategic community partnerships, where we try to take advantage of our presence and our technology to lift up the community. So if there are no questions, I'm going to hand it over to the Vice Chair, Jay, and let him cover.
There we are. I'm Jay Brown. I'm the one who was late, and Brad and Annette can attest that I'm normally not late, but I did get caught in traffic. I'm the CEO of Farmers Telephone Cooperative. We are based in Kingstree, South Carolina. We have operational offices in Sumter. We cover 5 counties in the state. You can see on the map in blue, that's our service territory. Williamsburg, Clarendon, Sumter, Lee, Lower Florence counties. A few facts about Farmers Telephone. We were founded in 1951 to provide services in those counties and the residents of Clarendon, Florence, Lee, Sumter, and Williamsburg. Today, we offer 5 core services: voice, video, internet, wireless, and security. We have 285 employees that primarily live in our 5-county service territory. In the last 5 years, we've constructed over 4,000 miles of additional fiber optic cable. We did have a fiber network prior to the pandemic and prior to the state grants and loans that we received which we were very thankful for. 85% of the cooperative customers today can get a fiber connection. This is primarily due to our participation in the loans and grants that were provided through the state and a significant private investment by our cooperative to achieve this goal. One thing I wanted to stress here this morning is many of you probably remember Hugo. And I started working at Farmers Telephone the year after Hugo. And all I did for the first 2 years was state buried cable because we had over 350 miles of aerial cable that were on the ground. And typically when we have cable on the ground, we have to wait for the power company to come in and replace the poles and, put all the strand up, and then we come after them and put the cable back up. So we felt like, based on what happened during Hugo, that we were going to, put all of our cable in the ground, and typically that has paid off over the years as we've had storms and we've had ice, different weather events, and the big difference for us and these other 9 companies here. Not only have we transformed the state, especially rural South Carolina, we've put this cable underground. And as Nanette said, there's a resiliency factor in underground cable that you don't recognize until you have a major weather event. I want to thank all of you for having us this morning. We think our story is very, very important. We think it's very interesting. And again, thank you very much for having us.
Chair Powers. Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Does Farmers Telephone Cooperative, do you primarily put your fiber in highway right of way as your direct?
Correct.
Is
Yes,
it
sir.
direct burial primarily?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we put all the cable typically on highway right away. We do have some private easement. All of our electronic sites are on easement. They're not on highway right away.
And just out of curiosity, thinking about, and Commissioner Britt would be familiar with this too, in the area where I used to work, it used to be old peach farms, rural areas like that now have, there's a gazillion things in that same right of way. With the service area that you have, is it still a reasonable right of way with not a whole lot buried in it, or do you have a lot of other infrastructure there?
There are certainly some areas that have water, sewer, other utility companies. Primarily though, in our area we do have ample room, and one thing we did especially after Hugo is we actually plowed our cable in a joint situation at times with the power companies and different utilities, and partnered up with those utilities. So that actually saved room on that highway right away. And then now that we've built out all the fiber, of course all that copper cable that we built 25 years ago has been abandoned. So that actually creates space in that right of way also.
I understand. That sounds good. Anybody ever cut your cable? Your fiber?
Today, no. Yesterday, yes.
Do you guys make your own repairs?
Sir?
Do you guys make your own repairs? Your crew make your own?
We do, yes, sir.
Well, we didn't cut any of yours, but we on occasion hit some by.
Well, 811 that the state implemented years ago has been a blessing. We all have good locating services, and for the most part, the utility companies do a really good job working together. So,
yes, they do.
Especially in South Carolina. It doesn't happen in every state like that, but South Carolina it does.
I couldn't agree more. Mistakes happen, but that was our experience too. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coming off of Commissioner Caston's questions, I'm very interested How deep do you bury the cable, and are you burying it in a device like this?
36 inches typically. As we set what we call a pedestal, which is a little wire center where we put the drops to the homes, those laterals are usually a little bit deeper, about 48 inches. And we do put fiber in conduit more and more every day. As you know, probably back in the day, you were able to take a trencher and cut driveways, and you know what I'm talking about. You could go through with a backhoe or driveway. Now we don't do that. We do directional boring, and we actually pull the conduit back. So there's a lot of fiber today, especially in those more areas where you have more homes and obviously more driveways and obstacles. You do a lot of directional boring, and typically directional boring is deeper than 36 inches.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, commissioners. Hope everybody is doing well. My name. Yes, sir. How's that? Okay. Again, good morning. Thank you guys for having us. My name is David Barnes, and I'm the CEO of Comporium Communications. Comporium was founded back in 1894, and then in 1912, it was sold to my great-great-grandparents. Since that time, the company's been within the family, and I am part of the 5th generation of working family members. Comporium is headquartered in Rock Hill, South Carolina. We employ a little under 900 people, and we have about 145,000 business and residential customers spanning both North and South Carolina, although the overwhelming majority of our customers reside right here in South Carolina. As far as the counties that we touch, there's a couple. So we have customers in York and Lancaster counties. We have customers in Spartanburg County, and then here in the Midlands area. So we have customers in Lexington and Fairfield, Orangeburg, Aiken, Calhoun, and Saluda. Before I pass it on, I did want to talk about a project that was impactful to the community that we just recently wrapped up. And I thought about maybe highlighting a telecom-specific project. We've been a big participant in the grant programs administered by the state. I know one in particular we're in the middle of right now is an ARPA grant in Chesney, South Carolina, where we're intended to bring fiber to the prem services to a little over 2,300 residences. We plan to invest a little over $7 million of our own private capital, and are only looking for about a 1.7% reimbursement on that grant. But instead of focusing on something like that, I wanted to talk to something a little different. And highlight our facilities and construction group. So our F&C group does something every year called their community project. And essentially what they do is they field applications from a number of different organizations across our service territory, with the intent of the application to be to solicit help from the group to help them out with a bunch of projects that require both physical and manual labor. This year, the Ann Springs Close Greenway was selected. For those that don't know, the Greenway is a 2,100 acre nature preserve that sits within a conservation easement in Fort Mill, South Carolina. And the Greenway reached out to us to see if we could help with a number of different projects that ranged from clearing fences and clearing brush, building fences, pressure washing, doing some painting. We were asked to see if we could help build some horse feeders for their equestrian program, and then also build a ADA accessible ramp for some of the students within their equestrian program that would need that. And so we told them we would help. And in mid-April, we went out to the Greenway. About 100 Comporium employees, again mainly comprised of folks from our facilities and construction group, went out there and helped them out for a day. Got a bunch of work done, and at the end of it, the president and CEO of Leroy Springs and Company reached out to express his gratitude to us and said, "Hey, I think you guys pulled about 3 years worth of work ahead," and was very thankful. And we do all this free of charge to the organization that we work for. And so I just wanted to point that out because, yes, we are an internet service provider. We do take pride in providing internet service to rural communities, but we also feel like we're more than that. We do try to give back to the communities that we're a part of and enhance those areas and do what we can on that front. So thank you.
Thank you again for having us again today. And my name is Lee Chambers from Sand Hill Telephone Cooperative. Just wanted to go through a quick few minutes talking about a few things that are important to us, and not necessarily just in the telecom space, but ways that we donate back to the community and ways that we've helped over the past 5 years, specifically after COVID. First off, I'd like to provide a little information. We're in the majority of Chesterfield County, the Bethune portion of Kershaw County, and for our Lake territory. We also serve Marlborough County for our Sea Lake territory. We have 76 full-time employees, an additional 16 contractors that are all residents of the state. We're providing a lot of the same services that everybody else up here provides: broadband, telephone, security, and television. We serve 13,000 homes in our area. And since COVID, we've invested over $57 million in fiber plant improvements alone, some with assistance from government programs. Talking about our community impact, part of giving back is our #1 priority. We have invested not only in fiber, but as a cooperative, we also give back capital credit checks. We've given out $6.5 million in the past several years. We've also given out another $500,000 in community donations to organizations such as local fire departments, police departments, and other nonprofits in the area. Additionally, each year we hold various events to support our community. We're in a low-income area by and large, so it's important for us to make sure that, especially around Christmas time, everybody has food on the table, everybody has toys from Santa Claus. So we go out of our way every year to make sure that those things happen in our community. And we don't just stop within our community. This past year, as everybody's aware, Hurricane Helene, we did fundraisers for areas outside of our area to the upstate portion of South Carolina. We sent people up there with chainsaws to help, generators. So we do a lot more than just our territory. COVID response, talking a little bit about that. One of the main things I think that we're most proud of is since COVID hit, we realized how important it was for everybody to have access to internet, even when they couldn't necessarily afford it. So we installed 28 free Wi-Fi hotspots around our territory, mostly in ballparks and near town halls, areas where public could easily access them. So every town in our territory has at least one Wi-Fi hotspot freely available to them. We also did what was a groundbreaking program at the time. We worked with our local school districts and our local community college, Northeastern Tech, with their mapping program, and we were able to quickly identify over the course of that summer every school child or student in technical college that was at home that did not currently have access to internet. We were able to get internet connections in every one of those homes over the course of that summer so that they were taken care of the next school year. And for Northeastern Tech, we actually worked with them to incorporate in broadband into part of their tuition as a buyback program. So when they enrolled in Northeastern Tech colleges, even if they were high school students taking Northeastern Tech courses, their internet was provided free during that time through the technical college for them. Into the future, just want to talk about a few things. As many people up here, we are offering multi-gig services, which is, as Nanette pointed out, far and away better than you can even get, even in parts of downtown Columbia. Our plan is to finish our fiber build out over the next couple of years, and with most of the others up here, there's a couple of us, we will be celebrating our 75th anniversary coming up next year, which is, for any business, a huge milestone in the state of South Carolina. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you for the time and appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers, before you pass it on, you know where Blenheim is, do you not?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. I used to practice law in Bennettsville, and one of the ways I got interested in broadband, I'm going to make this very quick because I know y'all have a lot more to say, was a fellow who was being pretty much harassed by police because he was sitting in the parking lot at McDonald's for several hours. He was there because his grandson had to come there in Bennettsville to the McDonald's to have internet. And that really struck a chord with me. I called the chief of police, who's a friend of mine, and he has since then really worked to spread the message and to help students. And he even served as chairman of the Board of Education for a short period of time. But your area and having lived in Sherall and Bennettsville is a special place in my heart, and we do appreciate what you're doing in that area. Thank you.
May I ask a question? And this can be to anybody, and it may even be to Ms. Edwards and Mr. Wright, excuse me. Where you're deploying new fiber and to these unserved areas, is it fiber all the way to the home? Okay. What about areas that already had access? Is that still copper or coax going to the home, or is that being upgraded?
I'll start, and I'm going to quickly turn it over to the
I don't mean to take up a lot of time, but it was just kind of curious.
These are great questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Will Helmley and Mr. Jay Brown. Under the grant processes from 2020 forward, you could do coax, hybrid fiber cable, or fiber, but for most part, the new grant funded, it's pretty much predominantly fiber. But I'm going to let them answer the questions. Mr. Helmley, Mr. J. Brown, if you would like to take a shot.
Yeah, for us, what we do, we put fiber cable in. We contact the existing customers who have service from us today, and we replace that drop with a fiber drop at no charge. And we actually can do the conversion inside from a copper connection to a fiber connection, and all that's done for existing customers at no charge.
That's where I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And typically what we see, if somebody's got, say, a 20 meg by 3, obviously with fiber they can get a gig symmetrical in it. For y'all that don't deal with this every day, today the standard is 100 meg by 20, right? So a gig is 1,000 meg. So, you're talking about a symmetrical speed up and down of 1,000 meg. So when you go from, 20 by 3 to a gig symmetrical, it's like somebody flipped the lights on. I mean, it's a huge difference from a broadband connectivity perspective.
Okay. And the other question I had, and I think Mr. Chambers is the one mentioned, is CLEC territory. Is this only in the ILEC, the incumbent area, or are y'all deploying the fiber in the CLEC areas as well? Because I think a lot of you have CLECs, if not all of you, most of you anyway.
Yeah, we farmers, we have several CLEC areas. We have, the town of Kingstree, Lake City, Manning, Bishopville, Sumter, and typically those are not cooperative members, and that's a separate company for us.
Right.
That is a private investment, but we are investing funds to convert those customers to fiber. Currently, there's not any state funding for those areas for us.
Okay, that's a big answer right there.
But we would love to have that.
It just crossed my mind because I think all of you have a CLEC subsidiary. So.
Yeah, the funding is available for any unserved address. So yes, we can use that funding and have used that funding to do CLEC areas, but they were CLEC areas that were unserved by anybody else. In case McClellanville's one we served that we built into with grant funds that
I forgot y'all took over McClellanville Telephone. Yeah, that was one thing, Mr. Barnes. I was really interested in all the growth from Comporium. Y'all acquired a number of systems over the years. That's how you ended up in the Midlands, right? With Pond Branch.
Yes, ma'am. A Palm Branch, and then the most recent was Chesney Telephone in 2021.
And Ridge Spring, was that one?
Ridge Springs was a little while back.
Lancaster.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, a lot of them. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Belzer. Y'all may proceed.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here and share a little bit about what we've been doing in broadband markets over the past several years. My name is Jason Dandridge. I'm the CEO of Palmetto Rural Telephone Cooperative, headquartered in Walterboro, down in Colleton County. I've been in the communications industry almost 31 years, hard to believe, 27 with PRTC. PRTC was founded in 1951 to serve rural Colleton County, so with the exception of Edisto Beach. So it was the the areas of the county where the larger providers would not come in and provide voice service. Currently, we employ 100 people, and we serve over 19,000 broadband customers. We began our fiber optic deployment actually in the mid-1980s. We first started putting some fiber in the network for transport services, and I remember coming in when I started there in '97 as an engineer. So part of my job was looking over the facilities that we had. We had a robust 12 fiber that served our outer ring, and our engineers said that is all you'll ever need. And now it is commonplace, to have fiber cables, several hundred fibers in a cable. So it just shows you how things change. We actually started our fiber to the home deployment in around 2009, 2010 with design work focused towards a system-wide deployment. We recognized back then that we had a state-of-the-art voice system, but that was not going to be what our members needed to take them into the future. So, we started working on the fiber network back then. In 2014 and 15, we constructed fiber connections to 4 Charleston County schools that were unserved, so they didn't have a fiber connection. And that made quite a difference for those folks over in the Meggett, Ravenel, Hollywood areas where those schools were located. And we also built to 7 Hampton County schools and their district office, which also were unserved with fiber at the time. In October of 2022, we celebrated a huge milestone in that we completed the construction and conversion of all of our ILEC and CLEC customers to fiber. And that was the culmination of a $126 million investment that we made. Those funds, came from a mixture of our own funds. We borrowed through the RUS USDA program, which is long time practice for cooperatives. And in our CLEC areas, more recently, we participated in several of the grant programs that have been out there. So that's helped us to expand our reach into the neighboring communities. And all of our facilities are 100% buried fiber optic. So in 2022, we disconnected all of our copper facility. We were the second company in the state to be able to do that. West Carolina owns the bragging rights of being the first. But we are 100% fiber and 100% buried. The narrative that Nanette shared earlier, the statistic about rural broadband in South Carolina actually being better and outperforming what we have in the urban areas of South Carolina, that's something to really be proud of. As I said, I've been around the industry for a long time, and South Carolina has taken its lumps in areas over the years, but I think one area where we have always excelled and been ahead of the curve nationally have been in communications, whether it was a voice network way back when, going into broadband now. So we take our mission very seriously in providing the best services that we can for our rural members and rural customers. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Dandridge, yep, I was just
There
going to
you go.
ask you to remove that
Yep,
slide.
yep,
Thank you,
got
sir.
got a little ahead of myself. I'll try to move it one more. There we go. So as I mentioned, we've expanded over the past few years with the grant programs that have been available. Through internal funding, through partnerships with entities such as Palmetto Electric Cooperative, Tri-County Electric Cooperative over in Orangeburg, various municipalities such as Meggett, Ravenel, Hollywood, Holly Hill, Dorchester County, just several different partners. We've been able to expand our broadband services and provide the needed facility to people who were without. Due to those partnerships, we now provide services in parts of Allendale, Bamberg, Barnwell, Beaufort, Charleston, Colleton, Dorchester, Hampton, Jasper, and Orangeburg counties. So for a little small cooperative that started to serve the people in need in rural Colleton County, we've really taken that mission to expand it into neighboring communities. And with that, I think that's about all I have. Just the fact that we've been doing this for a long time, and we got started on this process before it was seen as the thing to do. Thank goodness we started before COVID, so that we had a pretty good jump on that process. And we've been doing this long before other companies with deeper pockets maybe have stepped in and tried to do this, and we're doing it because it's the right thing to do for our neighbors.
Thank you. I'd like to also start by thanking the commissioners for their time today. Appreciate the opportunity to talk briefly about HTC's storied history. My name is Carlton Lewis, CEO of HTC, and I've worked with the cooperative now for over 27 years. HTC was founded by community leaders back in 1952 to provide telephone service to rural areas of Horry County, where for-profit organizations had no interest at the time to do that. From those humble beginnings, HTC has further expanded into Georgetown and Marion counties. We employ over 630 local residents, and we serve over 115,000 members, actually located in the Conway, South Carolina area. As a cooperative, HTC embodies a special and unique business structure where our members are equal owners of our organization. And we view ourselves to exist purely to serve our members, enriching their lives and improving the communities in which they live. HTC's nonprofit nature rewards its members with capital credit refunds and overall increases in equity of the cooperative when growth is achieved. And we view that as when we succeed, the residents of South Carolina succeed. We also serve our communities with a responsibility to give back and invest in the needs of our residents and local economy. Now, this is most evident through HTC's investments in areas of education, economic development, and charitable giving. HTC strives to protect its relevancy to its members and community, not just through our exceptional service, but also through how we elevate and also benefit our patrons. As been discussed in this setting already, telephone was certainly HTC's heritage, but broadband service has been the driving force meeting members' needs and enabling prosperity for the last decade. HTC viewed, like many here, fiber infrastructure to the premise as an essential component to the future growth and success of our communities. And as mentioned earlier, HTC was developing fiber to the home and deploying that fiber as far back as the mid-2000s to its members. Not only that, but I'm proud to say that because of our forward-looking investments in our network, that nearly 100% of Horry County had access to broadband at the start of the pandemic.
In 2020, our nation and state's need for broadband access was never more imperative, with children depending on that access to learn and remote work becoming essential to keep the economy moving and thriving. HTC worked with our local school district, proactively connecting over 600 students whose household had access to broadband but had not yet adopted it. We did this aggressively, without hesitation, and free of charge. Because most of our service area was served, once the pandemic hit, we turned our attention to our unserved neighbors in Georgetown and Marion, where residents had been left behind by other providers, some even lacking the ability at the time to call 911. We're extremely proud of the work our teams have done in this great initiative. HTC, with some stats here, has helped bring Marion County's unserved rate from 48% to less than 10%, with tireless efforts made to bridge the digital divide in Georgetown County, which started the pandemic at 27% unserved at that time. Regarding HTC's work in Georgetown County, just want to highlight something here. We're especially proud of our Sandy Island project. For those who don't know, Sandy Island is an unincorporated community only accessible by boat and is located on one of the largest freshwater islands in the state of South Carolina. Thanks to a grant from the South Carolina Broadband Office, we were able to utilize a hybrid solution of wireless and wired technologies to deliver a fiber to the home solution for the residents of the island. This was a very innovative approach to service, ensuring high performance standards and the efficient use of state funds. We have a link to the video spotlighting this project embedded in this presentation. As Lee mentioned, HTC is also getting close to its 75th anniversary in the next few years. And we've seen a lot of organizations come and go, be bought and sold, change names and their identities. But I believe HTC is an amazing example of how successful a company can be when it puts its customers first, truly operates with a desire to stand in the gap for our members and the communities that we serve. We've always been humbled by the trust our members place in us and the partnerships within this state that have helped us accomplish our mission of exceptional and unmatched service. And again, I just want to thank you all again for your time today, and we certainly appreciate the Commission's service to our great state. You got it.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Eric Ramey. I'm here today representing True Vista Communications. Our service territory is originally started out in Chester County. We were the Chester Telephone Company. A few years later, we acquired, many years later, acquired Lockhart Telephone Company, as well as Ridgeway Telephone Company in Fairfield County. And to the question about CLEC, then we also began years later to CLEC over into Kershaw County. Camden is a big service area for us in Kershaw. Today we employ approximately 275 or so employees. Not only in South Carolina, we do have some operations in Georgia as well, so some of those employees are housed there, but the vast majority of the employees are in South Carolina. True Vista, as you've seen earlier, has a long history in the state. 1897, we were founded in Chester County. That means a lot to me personally, and I wanted to express that here. I'm a native Chester guy. I was born and raised there, still live there, work at the corporate headquarters, and to see the company grow and change and give our rural area what they needed has meant tremendous amounts to everyone in the area. I've been with the company about 9 years now, a little over 9 years now. Prior to that, I worked in a very technology-centric automotive manufacturing facility. Chester Telephone Company at the time, True Vista, now afforded me the ability to be able to work from home prior to 9 years ago because of their commitment to providing high-speed broadband internet. It was amazing. I could take my laptop home and didn't have to sit there on the shop floor and program a CNC machine. I could do that from home and send codes back to the machine and make the machines operate. I was able to do that because the company made the investment in broadband internet. So for me to be able to now work for the company that allowed me a great career prior to being there has been fantastic. that's a little personal there. But the other thing I wanted to really do is talk about our commitment to our communities. As I said, we are headquartered in Chester, South Carolina. We have retail locations in every service area that we provide. We make sure that if a customer needs anything, they can reach out to us. You know, a lot of larger companies, I wouldn't name anybody, but you'd never get to touch the CEO of that company. The folks in this room right here, we're accessible to our customers all the time. I think I can say that with confidence. It's amazing to work for a company like that. But to the aspect of community, our CEO a few years ago was working with the Fairfield County School District, and they identified a need. They realized that they were losing, within 5 years, about 50% of the teachers that were coming into the district within 5 years. And when surveyed, the main reason for that was housing and lack of resources for continuing education. So True Vista partnered up with Fairfield County and together created what is now known as the Teachers Village of Winsboro. The village at Winsboro, we partnered to do the technology center there. We built fiber to the area. They built a house. We fully furnished it with fiber and Wi-Fi access points within the facility, which allows all of the teachers that live there. They built, I think, approximately 17 homes in there, of which they rent to teachers, new teachers coming in at a really good rate that allows the teachers to afford to be there. And then they have the access to all of the technology they need to continue their education so that they can continue to educate our young people in the area. So we're really proud of that initiative. It's turned out to be a really good initiative. And with that, I'd like to thank you again and take any questions.
If I might, Chairman.
Commissioner Caston.
Mr. Ramey, you said you were born and reared in Chester.
I'm sorry, sir.
You were born and reared in Chester. Is that what you said?
I was born born and reared in Chester.
Well, I said
raised.
I had an English teacher that used to tell me, "You raise corn, you rear children." So it's just kind of become a habit.
Thank you
so.
for that.
But I was born and raised or reared
Yeah.
in Chester also, and I probably date myself, but see, I remember. You remember party lines?
I do sort of remember party lines.
I remember them.
I remember having to listen to my sister.
Well, you know, I grew up in the country in Chester. If you can imagine that, that's about as country as you can get. And party lines that's about all you could get. But there's been significant change in that area. And I don't go there that much now, but it's kind of nice to see the positive change that's happening in Chester and Chester County. Nothing to do with anything else. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Party lines, that was the social media back then. It's pretty interesting.
Commissioners, my name is Chris Townsend, and I have the privilege of serving as the new CEO at West Carolina Rural Telephone. Tomorrow, good Lord willing, will be my 5-month anniversary with the company. I am originally a North Alabama boy, but I came via Tennessee. For the last 9 years, I also served as the CEO of a cooperative there in Middle Tennessee. But I'm originally from the northeast tip of Alabama, up in the southern tip of the Appalachians, just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so I started working at a cooperative there, another farmers telephone cooperative, a sister farmers telephone, when I was 19 years old, and have done just about every job that there has to do at a cooperative. And it has been the privilege of my life outside of family and relationships to be able to serve in the capacity that I do. I will say that in one respect, when I moved back to South Carolina in February, I did say back, I was coming home because when I was in 8th grade, I lived right on the Irmo-St. Andrews line, and I went to St. Andrews Middle School in my 8th grade year because my dad was the construction superintendent at the hospital in Lexington, where they were adding on to the hospital. So had about a year here in the state, and I can promise you it was a little different than up on Sand Mountain in North Alabama, but it was a fun time, and I have very fond memories and excited to be back. So today, just like my counterparts here, I want to take just a few moments to highlight our company, our cooperative at West Carolina, and just a few things that we have been involved in, and projects that I think that that really help tell the story, just like these other folks have today. We, as a cooperative, were founded in 1952. Mr. John McAllister from down in McCormick County actually had seen his mother, the story goes, answer calls previously when service members were being killed during World War II, and they were getting calls back to the store, and she would have to put on her good clothes to go tell folks that they had lost a son in the war. And he remembers as a child saying, I think everyone ought to receive that call on their own if they have to be in that position. We need to figure out how to get folks connected. So from a legacy of caring about others, West Carolina was started. I now am fast forward all these years, I have the privilege of being the 4th CEO at the company, and it's been an exciting few months for me, to say the least. I put this picture on here next just as representative of our folks as our employees. We have about 121 full-time employees at this moment, and they're involved in 9 different counties in South Carolina that we're serving, and a couple in Georgia. And I've joined this team, and I'm telling you, they're just good, salt-of-the-earth folks who care about serving other people. And that's representative of everybody you see around this room today. And I didn't want to move on without pointing out them and all that they do, because even though we're accessible to our folks, it's really these folks that are on the front line that are getting it done every day. Here on the slide, you can see the different counties that we serve. We originally started in McCormick, Abbeville, and Southern Anderson counties. We now have services as well in Greenwood, Newberry, Oconee, Pickens, Greenville, Spartanburg, and then a couple of counties across the Georgia line as well. So most of the upstate, that, as you've seen on the map in the dark blue area there. One of the things I think that as we've expanded, we come from our cooperative territory, having currently just over 10,000 members in that area. Still very rural. I think maybe a term that's been used once or twice is, this is considered high-cost areas where we serve. I think Nanette had said that earlier. And that essentially means that there aren't enough people that live there to pay for the system that's there without help in some other ways. And so many of us have worked really hard through the years to take advantage of programs that have helped us serve where others would not or could not. But at the same time, made lots of our own investments, our own people's investments to get the job done. We now are in 11 counties. We've passing 100,000 addresses, and we currently have around 57,000 connected customers to broadband. There are dozens of anchor institutions that would not have good service. When I say anchor institutions, I'm talking about hospitals, health clinics, schools, libraries, just go down the list, churches, that we really need to keep our community strong. And just like my counterparts, we're all working hard to make sure that those places have good service as well. And like others, we've put many free Wi-Fi hotspots. We added several during the pandemic, but we also added several when Hurricane Helene hit in our area to make sure that people had the services that they needed. I put this slide up. We're a cooperative at our founding and at our heart of what we do. But we've expanded through CLEC, through competitive areas. But I think the real thing that I want to point out is we've worked really hard, just like others here, to strategically collaborate with others where they needed service. It's not just about serving our own or making a dollar. Even though those things are very important, it's really about getting service to those who would not have it otherwise. And that way the served and the unserved and underserved receive service. We have several of those strategic collaborations. We have service in the city of Newberry where they were underserved at one point. Through our CLEC expansion, we're in multiple other counties that I've already pointed out. And like others, we've worked with ORS to receive funding through the state that has helped us make those expansions available when they would not have been financially feasible otherwise. And I'll take a moment to talk about our partnership or our collaboration with Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative. Especially up in Oconee and Pickens counties. It was some of the most unserved areas in the entire state. And again, through grant funding and through our own funding and through the funding of Blue Ridge Electric, we've now passed more than 40,000 addresses that were mostly completely unserved. They had no access to service or very limited otherwise. About 23,000 of those folks have now connected. And it has made a huge difference in those communities where we're serving. And that took about 3,500 miles of fiber being built to make that work. So again, you had some of the least connected are now some of the most connected. That could not have happened without all of those parties being involved in making that commitment to get the job done. Just back to Hurricane Helene, kind of what happened in our area. As you know, we were hit extremely hard in our part of the state, and then even those folks right across the line into North Carolina. We're all buried in the West Carolina traditional and select territories where we partner with Blue Ridge. There's a lot more aerial, and you can see what happened here. We did have, like others that were affected, a lot of repairs even in the buried plant. And then when you go to where there was poles broken, since this slide was produced, that number actually increased to over 1,000 broken poles in their territory. And so this is the unique thing about all that that I think is very important, is that if a person was able to have power in any county, the 11 counties that we served in, if they had power, their internet was working if they didn't have a drop or a broken pole that was down. And so I think that's pretty amazing, because what we saw, Jeff Wilson was the CEO during that time. Our people just went to work trying to, as always, get people connected, make sure they had service. Our company had police departments and county mayors and people from the hospital and the radio station coming and finding places that there was power or a generator so that they could have service and actually get messages out that were life-saving into the communities. And we were even able to get one hospital that we didn't currently serve up and working within a few hours when their current provider told them it would be 2 weeks before they could receive service from them. And we have been told that those actions literally saved lives that day. And so I just want to point that out, that again, people like this sitting around this room and those that we represent, because we are here in South Carolina, we live here, we go to church here, we shop here, we are here. It makes a huge difference in the folks that we're able to serve in the communities that we're in. We got, like others, a lot of investment going forward. We have built 800 miles of additional fiber since August of 2024. We have another 1,000 miles approximately that we plan to build through the end of 2026. That'll be an $80 million investment on our part to continue to build out some areas that are still underserved. And that's a huge dollar amount for us that we continue to put out. Moving on, I want to point out another thing that we were able to take advantage of just a few years back. We created what's called a virtual living room for vets. We went to the Abbeville County Library, and our company funded an area where there would be high quality service, including video, like on-camera type video services through the internet connectivity, and veterans could go and receive virtual health care or virtual mental health care in ways that they might not do otherwise, because we saw a great need in our community for that. That's been a successful project for us, and I think one of the things that we have been the most proud of about that is now, without us even knowing originally it was happening, we have multiple other groups that need that type of service within the community are coming to use that same virtual living room. So people are able to receive services that couldn't afford or didn't have a way otherwise to drive to a larger city to receive those same type of services. So we're very proud of that opportunity. One other thing that I know all of us are doing more of now, West Carolina has jumped into digital literacy classes. We're doing free courses for our communities every month now, free computer courses, video streaming courses as people are looking for ways to save money with their video services. We're teaching them how to stream over the internet to receive services to be able to watch TV. We're teaching cybersecurity. We're teaching managed Wi-Fi, or making sure people know how to use Wi-Fi and it's connected to their home and they're protected. And those have been very successful. Just a couple of weeks ago, we hosted a class in Greenwood. We hosted a class in Seneca, and both of those classes were maxed out with people on cybersecurity. And then on the same days, we did streaming classes, and those were maxed out. So lastly, I think for me is I could talk about a lot of different things that our employees do in the community. We have a couple of different foundations that our employees give to, including an internal foundation. And I know that our employees have given back of their own money over $80,000 over the last few years to the communities that we live in where there's great needs. But just one thing we've done recently is a food drive. Essentially, if somebody brings in some, dry good foods or canned foods, they essentially will upgrade their internet for a period of time for free, and there's no tricks or gimmicks to that. We'll give them something because they're giving something. It's resulted in over 5 tons of food being donated. We found out that our people in our community, they need service, and they need to be served, but they're looking to serve too. And we found out that when we connect them, not just to the internet, but we find ways to connect them to opportunities to give back, even the poorest and the neediest are finding ways to give back themselves. And that's a really big deal. We're super proud of that kind of an opportunity of our employees. And so, commissioners, we are collectively the Palmetto Broadband Coalition. The story that you've heard from us today, from our members, is a story of people. It's a story of all South Carolinians, their connectivity needs, and that of other South Carolinians working to meet those needs. We want to ensure that people are connected not only to what they need, but to the things that they love. The reality is we do everything we do because people matter. If it wasn't for the people of this state, we wouldn't have the jobs we have. We wouldn't be doing the things we're doing. And so every day we make decisions that make a difference in people's lives. We exist simply to improve the quality of lives for our members, for our customers, and for the communities in which we serve. As a matter of fact, there will be many people in the communities we serve that will never connect to our systems. They will never pay a penny to us, but because of the work that we do collectively, their lives are better than they would be if we weren't there serving today. We're very proud of that. We try to do things in a way that even if that person is not a customer, that we want to treat them with dignity, with care, and we want to do things that make their lives better even still. I think we're very thankful that we've been around for, as you've heard, around 130 years, for decades now, serving in this great state. And the things that we're doing today with broadband are providing limitless opportunities. And I don't say those words together flippantly. When I say limitless opportunities, I really believe that. It's things we call e-connectivity. It's things like e-commerce, economic development, entertainment, education, and much, much more. I imagine, I've talked about this often, I imagine, and I'm so hopeful, that someday soon there's a 14-year-old kid, young boy or girl, sitting in their bedroom, and they create an app, or they access an app, and somehow they figure out a way to cure cancer, or to better educate our kids, or to help their mom have a job that she couldn't have had before. What we're doing really is making a huge difference in people's lives, and we're thankful for that opportunity. We thank you today for letting us tell a little bit of our story. We really believe what we're doing is making a difference, as what you do makes a difference. And we want you to know that we're very excited to work with you in the future any way we can to make sure that all South Carolinians are connected. And we're excited to be part of this great state that is leading the way in broadband connectivity. And so with that, we thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Commissioner Kastner.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to say thank you all for this presentation. It was very informative and enlightening. Mr. Townsend, while I was born and reared in Chester, I live in Clemson. And I noticed, I guess you serve a portion of Newberry.
Yes, sir.
City of Newberry. Anything similar like in Seneca, Walhalla, Clemson, any of those areas? Or?
Yes, sir. Much of those areas in our partnership with Blue Ridge Electric, we actually call that service Upcountry Fiber, and we serve much of those areas. Some of the downtown areas that you've mentioned are not currently served just because they've had service, and we too have been really focused on getting the folks that are unserved. But yes, in almost all the parts of the upstate that you're mentioning there, service is there or will be there very soon, because I think we're passing another 25,000 subscribers over this next year as we finish out that build project.
Apparently, I'm one of the 5 people still on this one little copper line. But
yes, sir.
That'll be okay.
Yes, sir.
And you may have mentioned this, and maybe I missed it, but as far as the fiber in your service area, is it buried fiber?
Yes, sir. In West Carolina's ILEC and CLEC territory, so not where we're partnering with Blue Ridge Electric. It's primarily underground, but of course, working with an electric in the ways that we did, it made easier access in some of the aerial routes for them. And as you get up closer to the Blue Ridge Mountains, it gets more rocky and gets a little more expensive to bury some of that fiber as well. So we try to do everything we do in the most economically sound way, and so we have a mix of that based upon which area you're in.
I appreciate it, and I know all about putting stuff in rock too. That's not fun.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Chair Powers. This has been impressive, both in data, information, but also in heart. And I'll tell you where that's coming from. I'm from Charleston. I don't have any exposure to your work, really. I mean, I hate to admit it. I know that several of you mentioned my counties, and the work in I think it was Ravenel, and so thank you. I also love history. So when Ms. Edwards, I believe, was going over the dates, I wanted to ask what happened I can guess what happened in the 1890s to early 1900s, but then what happened in the 1950s? Can that be answered simply? Yeah. Because clearly something happened that created most of you all's.
I can take a first stab at it. Now, for the telephone cooperatives, they were primarily formed around the 1950s because the Rural Electrification Administration was basically the predominant was really to get electricity out to the nation. But along the way, there was recognition that we needed telephone service, needed to be able to communicate. And so you'll notice in that slide, and I don't have the clicker, but if I had that slide, literally all of the telephone cooperatives, they were formed around 1950, 1951, or 1952, those 3 years. But before that, I think Eric Ramey referred to it a little bit. Chester was originally a family-owned Chester Telephone Company. Over the years, at least initially in the 1800s and in the early 1900s, it was really family-owned businesses that started. And I chose Mr. and Mrs. Winter because they were in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, as my primary example. But the truth is, Lockhart Telephone, some of the acquisitions that you heard about, they were really acquisitions of family-owned and established businesses. And that over the decades, they've been acquired and become part of other companies. I don't know, Mr. Helmley, if you want to add to anything about Mr. and Mrs. Winters, but I recall reading that Mrs. Winters did a lot of work for $10 a month, and basically they sold the company and then bought it back, and it ultimately became Home Telephone Company, and now today is Home Telecom. But you may want to add a few words.
I just want to add that Miss Winters is my great-grandmother.
Okay.
And yeah, the original 6 phones that she mentioned were put in, one in the general store, which was the Winters General Store, and one at the train depot, and one at a local farm that did a lot. And it was all for business, so they could call down to the depot and see if something came in on the train that came in, or call down to the local store, the general store, to see if they had material. And then over time, it grew and more people put it in, and they needed a switchboard. So they stuck it in the back of the general store, and Ms. Winters was the switchboard operator. Again, I think the service was more of a nuisance, so it traded hands a couple of times, and ultimately she ended up buying it. So we like to consider ourselves one of the very early minority women-owned businesses.
There you go.
Fascinating. The other thing I really like are maps, and so I focused a lot on the relationship that each of you all have locationally, and looked at it's clear that some of the area that's kind of a very light green color are the urban areas. That makes sense. But I also see some pockets in there, and I just wondered if somebody could explain kind of, and I'm fine with asking what I think might be a stupid question, but those pockets and the 22,000 households, are your territory areas going to expand in order to cover those, understanding that others are also serving them? Or are your territory lines set now?
I'll start and then I'll turn it over. I know this just because of the broadband BSLs that are out there. Those BSLs, some of them that are remaining to be served, they could be unserved or underserved, meaning they have some access, but just not 100/20 or megabits per second or greater. Some of those locations are in service areas that our members are, and they may actually potentially bid on the BEAD program, which is now opened. So some are located within, but some are open. You notice there are, as you mentioned, that light green area. Those are areas that other companies may have had as traditional service areas. You may think of folks like AT&T, CenturyLink, Windstream now, Frontier. So there were other companies that, especially the names have changed over time, but in essence, those light areas, they've never been part of an ILEC area. If you were to go back in time and look at the South Carolina Telephone Coalition or the South Carolina Telephone Broadband Association service area maps, what you would see is that these areas are definitely much more expanded from where they began as ILEC areas.
Okay.
So to answer your question directly, those 22,000 locations, they're like dots sprinkled across the state. And the goal is to get universal connectivity to each and every location. Now, tomorrow we could have new construction and we could have new folks moving into the state. So it is as of a point of time. Certainly we will see continued growth in our state. I know the population of our state is very attractive to move to South Carolina. So there is going to be that continued, folks that want to come to our state. I'm going to turn it over to Will and Jay and the other members to see if there's anything they want to add to that.
Just quick, I'll give you a good example for your area in Charleston. I believe it is a main road that goes to Kiowa. Okay, a main road. So Comcast is a predominantly, the predominant cable provider in that area, and they have an adequate network. It meets all the standards. But with a coax network, you could only reach about 300 feet of a drop. So if you go down that main road and you go to all those houses that are 500 or 600 feet off the road, those are the ones that show up as unserved now because Comcast can't reach them without significant construction. So you have those scattered all over Charleston County, all over the areas served by charter, the predominant cable companies, where the local telephone companies have not invested in fiber. So that is the vast majority of the dots that are left out there, with the exception of a handful of clusters around, which most of us are trying to figure out how to serve those now.
Right.
Yeah, if you look at the Farmers Telephone Service Territory, you'll see what I'll call donut holes.
Right.
And those donut holes are the towns of Lake City, Kingstree, Manning, Somerton, Bishopville, and those were the old GTE boundaries where the ILEC, the incumbent local exchange carrier, could not go over those boundaries because that was the old GTE service territory. So we all began, and we began ours in the early to mid 90s. These select companies, competitive local exchange companies, they are not co-op customers. We're not affiliated with the co-op, but we went in and built those donut holes with cable. And there were some underserved areas in those select areas that we did do applications for in the ARPA rounds with ORS, and we did build out some of those areas. But there are still a vast majority of customers in those donut holes that, at some point in time we would like to build out too.
Okay. Right.
But that's what those defined areas, round areas that you see in our service territory, that's what they are.
Mr. Brown, I evacuated to your service territory in Hurricane Hugo. I saw what you had to deal with, and as well as what we had to deal with. But thank you for memory lane on that regard.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ramey, just one final curiosity. That yellow area that kind of trickles down from your compact area, tell me about it.
That was a few years ago. We had an opportunity to what was going to be I'm not exactly sure how it transpired, how it finished, but it was intended to be an expansion down into Richland County a little bit, and we built fiber, so we've got, I don't know how many miles of fiber is there. I just don't have the answer to that question, but it was intended to be an expansion opportunity down into Richland County. So just trying to continue to grow down, and it was it's a really socioeconomically challenged area, and so we were trying to get fiber down to that area. So.
Thank you again to each of you.
Commissioner Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my 7th week on the commission, so I have a 35-year history serving on Spartanburg County Council. But as Commissioner Caston was talking about his growing up in Chester County, I think the supermajority of the commissioners all grew up in rural areas. I was born in Dillon County, grew up in a little place that probably is the most rural of anybody in this room, a little place called Oak Grove, South Carolina, between Latta and Bennettsville. And when you're, Commissioner Williams, when you're asking about what happened in the 50s, I remember, because the house I lived in for the first 3 years of my life had no power. And then we had the party lines, that was an extraordinary thing to happen and have. But so most of us grew up in the rural areas, and I have seen what's happened in the rural areas. Both, when you think about Spartanburg, where I moved there in 1977, tons of communities that are still considered very rural. One of the things I wanted to say is almost every one of y'all thanked us for hearing y'all. Actually, I want to thank y'all for coming, because it's an honor for me to hear the presentations that y'all have made. I listened to Ms. Edwards, her opening presentation. I was blown away. Great job. But every one of y'all spoke about really two things: service to your communities and your residents, and the partnership that you've been able to foster, both with, all the way from, I guess, you mentioned ORS and, the leadership that we've had from our governors, our General Assembly, and Public Service Commission, all of us working together. That's why we do what we do. And the impact is really, I think, is overwhelming. And y'all are a great example of why South Carolina, as Ms. Edwards just mentioned, is one of the fastest growing states in the country. And we have basically 5 counties that are leading that growth. There are going to be over 1.2 million people moving to South Carolina. They say in the next 15 years. I think it's going to happen a lot faster than that. Led by Horry County is number 1. Number 2 is Spartanburg County. Number 3 is Greenville. Number 4 is Berkeley County. And number 5 is York County. And we have 25 counties in this state that aren't growing. But I think with what y'all are doing right now, you're going to enable those other 25 counties to have growth, because people go where they're number 1, where there's jobs and education. And with what you're doing with broadband and the service that you're providing, it's not just a nice thing to have. It's a necessity, because you are impacting people's lives right now, not just in the future. Children that can get on the internet, that can learn, sparking that, that interest and that excitement about what I can be if I have the tools. You're giving them the tools. I have, for the last, like I say, 35 years, I went to a county that had 40,000 people that were unemployed in Spartanburg County. And today we basically have 0% unemployed because of the jobs and education that we've had. So I just wanted to thank you. You are a lifeline to your communities and your hope and opportunity for your residents now and in the future. So thank you for what you've done. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Brett. Vice Chair Williams, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure that my comments are quick, just in case we want to get out before 12 o'clock. I want to give Mr. Wright and Ms. Edwards a lot of kudos, because but for commissioner comments, I think you all would have finished a presentation with 10 people in about 65 minutes. And there was a over-under going. And I tell you, I'm impressed. That's impressive. That took a lot of preparation. So thank you for that. Mr. Helmley, I just want to reiterate or give you a little story to let you know how important that program you talked about in Cross is and how it could potentially bear fruit later. I was in a program, not necessarily identical, but a program by an electrical cooperative called the Washington Youth Tour Experience when I was in high school. And believe it or not, but for that experience, I don't know if I would have had the courage enough to come over to the Public Service Commission. When I was in high school, I was able to go to Washington, D.C. and learn about the rural, I forget the name of the agency, rural electrification. I don't know if it was commission or committee or program. But long story short, my little hometown would not have had electricity but for electric cooperatives. And they wouldn't have telephone service. It was Pond Branch when I was there, but I think Caporium has now taken over. And interestingly enough, since my father's transitioned our family farm to me, I still am benefiting from, I guess it's Caporium now, because I had to put on a fuel injection pump on one of our tractors. And I really didn't pay as much of attention on the farm as I should have growing up. But YouTube is a great tool, and I was able to get that job done. So that's a practical example of how you guys are still helping us out. Again, that's low level, but I think you would be surprised 20 years from now, the students down in Cross, how much they will benefit from having the iPads and the broadband connectivity to be able to do things that, but for that, they would not have been able to do. So I know I called you out because that program spoke to me, but all the programs that you all spoke about, I know you don't take it for granted, but I just wanted you to hear from someone who benefited directly how important those programs are and the fruit that those programs will bear. I do not take that lightly because I'm the fruit. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams. Any further commissioner comments? I just have one curious question. These hot spots, are they on a map or on a website where people could find them if they needed to?
It's a great question, and actually, all the companies, they have them listed on their websites. Now, if you didn't have access to a website, but you were a member or a customer of one of the companies, you can obviously, call in and ask where the nearest one, because there is an affordability issue. Not everyone can afford to pay for the service, and so they make these locations available. They are listed on their websites, but you can also call in and ask.
Yeah. Which is good because, we've talked a lot about accessibility and, of course, resiliency and reliability, but affordability is still always going to be an issue for certain parts of our population. What you do is great. Any further comments, anything else from anybody? ORS, do you have any comments or follow-up that we need to deal with?
We don't have anything else, Chair
Okay, well,
Powers.
thank you for being here and in your role for this hearing. If nothing else, I think it's getting towards lunchtime and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.